Hey everybody, welcome to day 11 of the AI art project. And today is amazing. It is once again, like really late at night, as it seems to be almost every time with these. And today kind of almost didn't happen, just because it's just been a crazy week and there hasn't been much sleep to go around. It was like 10 o'clock at night and I was just sitting on the stairs like, oh God, I don't know if I can do this. And I got an awesome pep talk from my partner and came upstairs, put on like a really good hip hop mix I found on YouTube. I'll throw a link to that in the description. It's just killer. It's really good. It's like very energetic. And then the scene is just like driving or flying around cities. And so it just gets your mind going. It started working and it was so worth it. So what has happened since then is what is actually still happening right now on my computer. Is I started training my first recurrent neural network based on things that I've actually things of myself. And so these are the ones I talked about it a little bit yesterday. These are the ones that generate new content and then check it against the sample you give it, right? So it just generates random guesses about like, is there good to follow an A with a C? Like, I don't know. Let's try it. And then let's see how close it is to the sample we were given. And so instead of like picking from a selection of responses you get it's making new things and trying to make a new thing that fits closest to the sample. So what I did was I fed it all of the letters I've written over the last 3 or 4 years, however long it's been. For people who don't know, I wrote a weekly letter as I was going around the world. And it was kind of cool. It was a sort of thing. I'm really proud of it as a piece of art, and I haven't really done a good job of it since everything got turned upside down when I landed in New Zealand. But the writing there, it has sort of a feel to it. And so I took all of that and I combined them all into a thing, and I fed it into the machine, into the recurrent neural network. And what's cool about sort of the recurrent, like, I don't know if it's recurrent, I'm pronouncing this wrong. I'm very excited and I'm not going to make a lot of sense today, or at least like normally I show up with like a script. I'm like, oh, I'll talk about these things. It's going to be great. I don't have one because I'm just excited. Anyway, so the cool thing is that the program improves over time. Like it keeps trying and trying and trying and improving sort of its mapping. And so as it started sort of training itself on the letters, it was just crazy to watch, because like this is a thing that doesn't start with any sense of like human language. It doesn't know what words are. It's just like a letter is a letter and I'll put the letters in order. And like back at the very beginning, I'll actually pull this up on the screen for folks who are tuned in right now. Back at the beginning, you get sort of these like big hunks of letters, but it's sort of figured out after the first 1,000 tries, like that there are things called words, and words are like groups of, generally 3 to 8 letters, and it kind of has some that it knows, like it gets a it generally gets like T is generally followed by an H and E, and you put them in the middle of these groups. It's sort of starting to get punctuation, and then you go further on, and what I started to see emerge is this really uncanny echo, right? It's a sense of my writing and my tone and the way that I use language. So I'm a big fan of short, punctuated, like sharp sentences that are set off from a block of text. I'm a big fan of an em dash, of like just having a clause and then dash and then another clause and then a little bit more. And I start to see as this goes through all of that. I write all my posts originally in Markdown, which is just a little language that lets you like put bold and italic and HTML links really easy without having to write any code. And it's starting to generate content that has Markdown in it. And so we're sort of going along, and the more it learns, the more it starts to really feel like, like that sort of looks like my writing. And it starts to actually figure out words and starts to put them together in ways that like line up to me and things that I would say. And so by the end of the time, it does the training with the first just default settings. It's saying things that aren't quite aren't quite sensical, but are definitely right in terms of the rhythm. Like it finishes by saying, everyone else of love, late thing here, felt less things the guy from being we covered. In this daily bells there was life. You really died. Let mode to feel mine by great, for you're free to another world. Okay, so this is a little bit off still, but there's like this essence of my style and the way, like when I'm looking at the writing, I'm like, oh yeah, that looks like the length of paragraphs I use. That looks like, you know, these short, punchy sentences. When I do the second level, I end up with things like, you have the same done, you mistake. That's oddly like my language. And again, this is a model that doesn't know anything about words. It just knows that like this letter comes after this letter. And that's kind of crazy. So I see it like finding maps to things like early on I write, you know, I mentioned depression here from time to time, and its first take on depression was depressical, which I appreciate. Sometimes I just experience depressical. It's sad, it's towering, it hangs, eventually it melts and falls. But you know, it's a good depressical. I said ish is cloud. That's sort of a thing. And it just like really struck me at how much of, you know, I've been talking about naming this project Echo, like how much of an echo is there? Like how much of my style of writing this thing got right, with me knowing very little about how to train it or optimize it or any of those things. And so what I did after that was then go back to the text messages. And so I stripped out actually all the replies and just said, hey, can this thing generate text messages that look like they're text messages from me? And the first sort of attempt it had was kind of shockingly good. Like there's a bunch of stuff here that doesn't really make sense, you know, N parentheses deed, which is maybe gonna be indeed. I don't know, but it's got hey smiley face. It's good, or is good rather. All good. Woo! I send a lot of heart emojis. It's got like 3 different variations on the heart emojis. It says ha cheeses. You know, as in the icon has cheese. And this is the first one. And so as it's going along, it keeps getting better and better and better and better at this. And by the iteration that was running just before I started this stream, like the words are all spelled mostly right, and they're exactly the kinds of things that I would type. Thanks you, wow. Like there's a lot of exclamation points. I use a lot of exclamation points. There's a lot of a very like, I like the small smile emoji, so there's a lot of those. Yeah, it's a weird sort of echo of me. There's even a Zoom link. So Zoom is this awesome like video chat platform. I use it for work. My partner uses it for everything. I kind of live on Zoom, and so I send out a really large number of just like, here's a Zoom link. I don't know if this is a real link. I'm not going to click on it right now. Well, maybe I will. Maybe I'll click on it at the end of the podcast. I don't know. But that was sort of the start. It is actually still going. It is about halfway through. It's running 34,600 different iterations on this, and it's about 18,000 through. And because of the way this works, I can't actually run new samples while I'm streaming because my super fancy beefy computer that I built runs out of memory. It's just too much, which also makes me really happy. So I think the next thing I'm also going to try feeding it my book. I wrote this book on depression. It's big. It's like 400 pages or something. Like, that's a lot of content. But, you know, in terms of this idea of making an echo, I think this is a new thing. Like, yesterday I was like, okay, well, maybe this will be cool and maybe something will happen with them. But I really didn't anticipate the ways in which my tone sort of carried on. And this is like the first try, right? Like, this is sort of recurrent neural networks 101. And the other thing I haven't done yet is the sort of second one, which is sequence to sequence, which is basically two of them, where one's for like a question and one's for an answer, and they get connected. But it's sort of weird and uncanny and just so exciting. And if you're sort of wondering, like, okay, this sounds cool and sort of like magic, like it does feel like magic. But if you're sort of watching the stream right now, you'll see it running through, and you see this like train loss equals, and they're just numbers. It's like 0.957 and 0.93, and you know, they're numbers that are very slowly going down. So what this is how well the model that was generated, the like it's sort of guess, its model for how to send text messages like me, how well that fits the data. And this is exactly analogous to like when you were in algebra class and you had like, here are these 3 points and let's fit a curve to them. Like, let's find the curve that best fits. And your calculator did this, right? If you had like a fancy graphing calculator, you could be like, here are the data points, find me the equation that does this, because I don't want to do the homework because it's really hard. That's exactly what's happening here, but just with a really, really big graph with lots and lots and lots and lots of data. And so it's kind of cool. Like, as it goes along, it isn't steady improvement because it's just trying things. And some of them are great ideas and some of them are terrible ideas. And so there's this like natural variance as I see it come through where sometimes it gets better, sometimes it gets worse. You're definitely not guaranteed that the stuff at the end of sort of the training of the model is the best stuff. And so it like just tries things, and as it goes along, you see what you get. So I think there's a lot here to explore in terms of how I make a good model, but also in terms of like, how can this then come to life, right? I had thought about this echo as really trying to take the messages and kind of match them with their content. But what I've seen from just a first start of like trying to generate this kind of stuff is that it's really good. It's not perfect, but there's enough here that I'm interested to see what, with some actual work and tuning, like what can come out of this that, especially maybe with the sequence to sequence, like that can be responsive in a way that is not predictable. That's not exactly the sorts of things that I've exactly said before. But it's unknown, and it has, again, that sort of essence, this echo, this sense of me that I couldn't put into words if I tried. Like, I don't know how to tell you how to write like me, but I know that this model does a pretty good job of the intangible pieces, not the words, but like the flow, the structure, the way it all fits together. And that is fascinating. That I had no idea about before tonight. And I'm really excited to like think about that idea and how that all fits and the ways in which like this thing could sort of get sort of a fingerprint or a shadow of someone's work. Sort of say, here's the stuff that lets you know it's them. Like when you read a writer you know well, or listen to music of someone you know well, like you know who it is immediately, even if you've never heard the song, because there's this essence, this this consistency to the way that we bring ourselves as human beings to our work that's inescapable. Like, you can't ever write as someone else, right? Like, you can't ever get away from yourself in your work. And what I'm seeing with this model is an echo of me. It's an echo of my work and what that bit that I can't get away from is. Did not think that was coming. This is just super cool. Thank you for geeking out with me. If you're listening on the podcast and you're like walking around or doing, the house, I don't know what you do while you're listening to these podcasts. I assume that it's fun. I hope it's fun. I hope that you are like, wait, I think I just learned how like a big form of AI works. Like, that's cool. And this guy's kind of crazy, but maybe he's okay. I don't know what you think. Thanks for listening. That's what I think. If you're on the YouTubes, yeah, you'll be able to see, I guess actually either way, if you want to see more of these responses, definitely watch the video. You can go to AI+ART.com and just hit the YouTube series, and then you go to whatever day it is and skip around, do whatever you want to do. There is a little bit of loss, I think, for everybody who's listening to podcasts in that I try to sort of do both, but it's not perfect. So definitely feel free to hop over there and take a look. I'm going to now go and see what the latest training 21,326 has come up with, and probably not sleep as soon as I should be sleeping tonight just because I'm excited. Thanks for joining me. I will be back again for sure tomorrow, wrap up this second week of the first project. And I have no idea what we'll be doing for that either. So it'll be good. Have a great one, and I will see you again tomorrow. Bye. That's my all. It's always, you can't. Who wants to cameo tonight? Anybody? I don't know. Yeah.